Hey guys, welcome back to Seller Sessions 4 p.m. BST on a Wednesday. This is a new series I'm kicking off. Today I bring in a friend of mine, Joe Harwood. Joe is basically going to give us a breakdown. So the idea is that we're going to talk to people in these parts of these series that have had exits, what it's like after exit, and what it's like to go again. So Joe, welcome to the show. Do you want to let the audience know what you've been up to this week, and I'll share to the groups?
Yeah, sure, no worries. I mean, this week's been a pretty simple week for me. I'm full-time dad for a new baby, so I spend most of my time looking after Aubrey. He's my son.
Yeah.
Then I have an Amazon company. I exited the first one, and I have another brand that I was building alongside that on a separate account. So I spent a little bit of time managing that. We hired a new guy, so it's a bit of onboarding with that, but mainly done by my account manager. I did the final interviews. So yeah, it's been a pretty good week, really.
Cool. And like you said, we'll get into the details because like you're not very busy, because we had a little joke off call is that you are doing the 4-hour work week, but there's a reason behind that and how you've got there. So let's just take it a little bit back. Take it back. When did the whole entrepreneurial thing start for you?
Sure. I've been pretty entrepreneurial. Like, I wouldn't say I've been entrepreneurial from a very early age, but around 17, 18, I started realizing that if I was going to work for someone else, I would be a wage slave for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Which was not a path I wanted to visit. So I've always jokingly called myself like a forced entrepreneur. I don't really I don't live and breathe entrepreneurialism, but because there wasn't that many other choices, like for someone like myself, average intelligence kind of thing, to really like climb up a career ladder. And I'm kind of lazy as well, to be honest. So,
considering you're saying that you're not that bright and that you're kind of lazy, exiting a revenue at 8 million is no mean feat, and going.
Yeah, no, sure.
But we'll get into that. So you've got a bit, and this will give context later, that you said that you started out doing labouring, right? So kind of working class kind of jobs, going out on site and stuff.
Yeah. I was started as a labourer, learned some bricklaying. Wasn't great at bricklaying. Started plastering. Was pretty good at plastering. I like plastering. Kind of like very satisfying to take a rough room and see a finished product by the end of the day. Trained to be an electrician. Did loads of if you're self-employed labourer, sometimes you skip between jobs here and there. So I had loads of random bits in between. Lived in London for a bit, back and forth from London to my hometown in the southwest. But yeah, I mean, the majority of my time I was doing labouring work for about 5-6 years. Always sort of had something slightly entrepreneurial on the go. A self-employed nature, so I tried the whole email list building thing, and selling a product as an affiliate, trying to build affiliate websites, tried to build a dating site, stuff like that. But eventually joined ASM3.
Yes.
From I've forgotten his name now.
2015, 2014?
14, yeah, November 2014, I think.
Yeah.
Somewhere around then.
So that set you on your path anyway, right?
Yeah.
So
Jason Fladland, that was the name of the dude I was trying to remember. Yeah.
So you 2014-15, what was you into back then? Can you reveal was it any of the products that you sold when you exited, or was it these are just
so my first product was I honestly define this as the perfect Amazon product. Found it on Alibaba. I mean, this is 2014, so it was you could kind of do this stuff. I found it on Alibaba for $1 something, and it was I could put it into the marketplace for 17. And it was this tiny little widget. FBA fees were tiny. It was all great. Shipped it over there. Didn't really know what I was doing. Listing was awful, photos were awful. Started trickling in sales. Had a part of Jason's deal to do the affiliate thing was that he did like a consult call with you. Like he just totally trashed my listing. He's like, you're gonna have to rebuild it, hire a graphic designer, completely changed my mindset, redid it. Season came in, products flew off the shelves. Like first product, and I was like in season, I was doing 50,000 a month. Wow. It was insane. Season's about 4 months, but like at that point I was hooked, and like
and you had a bit of cash flow in as well. So obviously we got to go. When did you hit your first million?
Probably that year. I don't know exactly. Maybe after I very quickly capped out what that brand could do because it was very specific. So then I created another brand to run alongside that in a completely different niche. So I mean, I probably hit the first mil either that year at the end of the season. No, it wouldn't have been. That's too fast. It would have probably been next year, somewhere during the season for that brand again in 2015. Yeah.
So how did things change from there? You've hit your first million. You've gone from 0 to 1 million. What changed there in terms of any team structure implemented or anything like that? Like you said, you were clueless about doing anything. You learned about it. You hit your first million pretty sharpish. What was that growing pains like there?
So I think for the first bit, it was a combination of timing and luck. I didn't really know what I was doing.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff. Learned on the go. Product was average. Well, the product was good. The listing and content were average. Didn't really know much about advertising. Got lucky. Found the right niche. So then I went on one of these China mastermind. It was a group called PKI at the time. Actually, no, they weren't PKI then. It was Isaac Kuhlman and Paul Sinclair did a China mastermind with Kirsty Verity.
Yeah.
I went there and just chatting with those guys and bearing in mind at this point I had very little business experience. And just chatting with those guys and the mindset and information sharing and all that kind of thing, it really opened up what the kind of e-commerce world actually was. And hearing Paul talk about his business and how he operated it and how he ran it and how he found team members and all that kind of thing, it just made it super clear and real.
Yeah.
I also met a sourcing agent out there who I would treat her as a partner and a very close friend. She became a very core component of that specific business. So that was kind of the big shift, was I guess the discovering the entrepreneurial mindset and then really kind of getting some key players in place. And if I didn't have that sourcing agent, I don't think the next things I did would have succeeded.
So where did you go next? Obviously, in comes a new members of the team. You've got a sourcing agent, allows you to scale. How many products did you start to floor it then? Because I know now, when we get to it later, we had a chat off call and it was we sit down and we talked about the products that we're launching that week, a weekly thing, and literally it is, but we'll get into that later. Yeah. So tell me about the next stage. You've hit 1 million, you've got a sourcing agent in place. What was the climb then before we get to sell? So this is 2015-ish, you've done 1 million. When was 2? When is 3? Let's walk through those steps.
So it's really hard to talk about what I did without disclosing the products I did.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be a little bit vague just so I don't step on anyone's toes.
Yes.
I moved into a specific niche that was trending, but no one on Amazon was branding towards that trend.
Yeah.
So I found this product, branded the product as the way to do this trend. And it really, really took off.
Yeah.
So then I kind of took that and made that my sort of expertise and just spent a lot of time focusing on sourcing one product and doing exceptionally large orders for those products and picking up on a trend and moving from trend to trend.
Yeah.
So basically did that 3 times in a row, growing each time.
And did you win each time? Did you have any flops in there, or was it just all wins?
Yeah, I won with a lot of complications, because when you're moving in trending things that you don't truly understand, sometimes you make mistakes. So the first product, oh god, it's so hard to do without without revealing.
Okay, guys, everyone who's listening and then the replay on the podcast, Joe is obviously under an agreement, and there'll be certain words that you can't say. So bear with us on that, because obviously you don't want to get in trouble with the buyer. So yeah, go on.
So yeah, the first product, we bought about 10,000 units on the first order. It was a real home run product. We got ahead of the market. We built 1,000 reviews. We killed it at Christmas. It was great. Then basically,
yeah, I know you're struggling.
It was so. Then the next one, we did around 100,000 units total of the product. We actually got that product suspended from Amazon. There was a big kerfuffle around this whole thing. A lot of real innocent sellers got brandished with a lot of negativity. So there's a shitload of bad stuff happened with that product. We eventually managed to sell around 70,000 units of it through Shopify, with Amazon doing the fulfillment. It was one of those things that, it was absolutely crazy, and anyone that's kind of been involved and knows about my journey through this, it was incredibly stressful chasing that particular trend. But we did a crazy amount of revenue in just a very, very short space of time.
So we were at 2016 here, are we?
2017, yeah.
17.
Then I had a big pot of cash to do another Q4 seasonal product. That it was one of those spaces where the product existed on market in the Amazon marketplace, but no one was branding to the true audience for that product. And then I launched that product, and it formed the kind of pretty much the core of the company and did about 60% of the revenue. And that's basically it. It was get rolling on the back of three big trends. And
so
now
you worked off the back of the trends. Obviously, the seasons and the cycles changed. What was your next step? So we move into 18. When was it that you started to consider for sale of that Amazon business?
So I work with Scott Dietz, as I'm sure many people have heard his name in the kind of Amazon sale area. I think I was actually one of his first clients. I met him in Vegas, I think in 2016 or 2017, when he was just starting out with consulting for people. So I remember we sat down when I first had my first, and we were considering listing for about 5 times less than what I eventually sold for a year and a half before. I mean, Scott helped a massive amount. I mean, I don't want this to be a sort of pitch for his services, but in a kind of he opened up my eyes to various different strategies. I didn't have payment terms with my suppliers, so he went and negotiated payment terms for me. Then I was able to pull the trigger on a nearly 70,000 unit order for Q4 that would have been 35, and we sold out of that entire line. So that instantly just added a massive amount of profit to my.
And so obviously your trajectory is going up, and it's always attractive to a buyer. There's no dips or anything. It's just flat to the floor. So they obviously see the growth potential, and it becomes much more of an interesting proposition, right?
It's kind of bonkers. The guy that bought it, because of COVID, it's in I've said Q4 products, and the other one's Patio Lawn and Garden, the other brand that was under that account. So they were all kind of things that really picked up, because people were spending a lot of time in their garden, and people were trying to entertain kids at home. So yeah, like all of those things really picked up, and well, basically like revenue over doubled. So he's pretty happy as well.
So when did you hit the 7-8 million mark? Was it in 2018?
I actually, so interestingly, I kind of hit it twice. So the first event was first thing I told you, the second trend, sorry, was a sort of one-off event that would not occur again. That I hit the 8 million in that year, but obviously if that event hadn't happened, like the growth would have been reasonably normal, but it was this kind of spike and then a little plateau and then spike back up again. Which Scott actually recast those numbers out because it was a one-off event, which is kind of another thing. Like he does loads of crazy stuff like that makes you more attractive to buyers.
Yeah, no, that's good. And so we're around to 2019. How long did it take by the time the initial engagement with the buyer to closing, how long did that take?
It was a pretty long one. I did it with Quiet Light and Mark Dowse, the broker. I think he's the director. He said it was one of the most difficult transactions that he had ever been on. It took nearly 4 months to close.
Okay, I've heard a lot longer, but 4 months. Yeah.
It was
it probably feels like 10 years though when you're in due diligence. Yeah.
So, well, basically, the reason it was so tough is my son was born. He was about 3 months old when we actually closed, but we were closing up to like from when he was born to when we closed. He was born in April. That whole time was really tough. Really, really super tough. Don't have a kid when you're closing.
Whilst you're trying to close, some legacy money. Yeah, because probably not the best advice. Yeah. They say timing's everything, and I think you timed the pregnancy or your family timed the pregnancy.
Yeah, we felt like we had timed it amazingly, but like just selling your company just takes longer than you would expect. Like we were in prep, like doing all the interviews and all that kind of stuff for a 2-3 month period, like, and then getting the financials in order, blah blah blah. Like it's a bunch of work.
So let's talk major fuck ups. It don't matter now, and it's not private information. Did you have to reverse engineer the company and dial back and just rebuild it again because your structure was wrong? You've grown to multiple millions, and it was maybe a bit messy. Talk me through some of the things that we're going to talk about, because you're on your second business now, and that's 2 million, right? We'll get down the road there later. But what did you do now that was part of that time, which was just a huge fucking headache? Yeah.
Sure. That's like a super interesting question. I have a lot of opinions on what I did wrong. Yeah. I built myself as the core of the business. I was the person that everyone spoke to. Everyone went through me for a decision. Like I was in my email for 2-3 hours a day doing stupid shit that I didn't. Sorry, I don't want to swear, but doing stuff that I just didn't need to be doing. Working on reaction and not forward thinking. Like, oh God, Amazon's done this, blah, blah, blah. Oh, I need to research that. Like headless chicken running around putting out fires. All outsourced staff, which, like some people are amazing at managing that and they do a great job and they build the right structures. And that just wasn't something I could do. Tried it. It didn't work. So with the other company, the first thing we did was hire a local who we call our account manager, but she's almost a sort of director kind of level mindset, just without the incentives. And she, through a lot of trial and error, like basically built my second company. But we kind of obviously I'd been through it, and so I was giving her a lot of advice and guidance, but
dialing back in that period leading up to the sale. What was the fuck ups in that area that you really had to clean up, which was a headache?
In selling the company,
leading up to selling, did you have to change from cash to accrual counting and stuff like that?
We changed from cash to accrual. That was messy. My zero was trash. Like I was not good at uploading invoices, and apparently neither was my bookkeeper.
Yeah.
The whole thing was kind of messy. Let me think. The stock numbers were the worst thing to do. If anyone is planning on selling your business, our specific buyer was requesting stock numbers on a weekly basis, like valuations, so they could put things into legal contracts and stuff, and we just couldn't give them answers because we didn't know. Like half our inventory was on the sea, like half of it was like, so anything to do to keep good track. Like we actually ended up using a thing called Inventory Planner with our other company, so we can at any one point now give you an exact value of stock on any given day. Which is just something I didn't have access to, and we were sort of, like we're talking about like a really high 6-figure value of stock. So like we're asking a guy to buy our company based on numbers we're throwing together in a Excel sheet. And it just doesn't, like it doesn't look great when they find a formula error and you're like, oh yeah, that 1,000 units was actually only 100 units. Oops. Right. Stuff like that. So yeah,
and that's stressful because when you make them mistakes, it feels like the buyer loses confidence in you, because it's like you should know your numbers, you should know your inventory levels, and that kind of internal. It's your first sale, right? Internally, you're like have a little bit of panic. You try to keep your poker face. So, all right. So the accounting was a mess. The inventory management, obviously, you got more sophistication and stuff in place now. Leading up, talk me through, without the details, how were you feeling 2 days out before you closed? Did you get any sleep? What was going through your head? That kind of shit,
I mean, mainly not getting the sleep was because of the baby. But obviously, any contract you agree to where you're agreeing to liabilities for a company, so like you don't think, but you comb through that contract, like, and this is like 60-70 page of legalese I don't truly understand. But you raise questions about every single line that you think could be a threat to your future. I mean, it was boring, but I sat there with my baby crying in the background 12 hours a day reading contract. It was hard to do, and
that sounds hideous.
It's and I mean, like your head is spinning by the end of it, and you're fielding emails of different questions about tax advisors, like as well. A UK. So basically, one of the big things with our deal is the buyer was an individual as well, so he didn't have like a company structure that he knew was good for acquiring a UK entity. So to actually keep the deal on the table, we ended up getting one of Scott's contacts he plans out deals for 8 and 9 figure companies. So he took a look at this and suggested some structures that the buy side could use to kind of keep the deal on the table, because they were like, look, we just don't know how to acquire a UK company at the moment. Like we're thinking of backing out kind of stuff. Maybe it wasn't that bad, but like it was definitely a big concern for them. All the other stuff. God, one of the other objections was the contract. It's standard to sell a UK company under UK law, but the buyer wouldn't move, and the contract then ended up being governed in US law. So inevitably, if something does go wrong, like I'm going to have to fly over to the US and defend myself in that court system and environment. So that's kind of, they're just things that you've got to kind of be a little bit aware of, I guess. Like it was a non-negotiable for them. And that's fine. Like I was happy to kind of do that to keep the deal alive. But yeah. So
day of the deal, closing. Any wobbles on the day?
No, it all went through pretty. I mean, one thing. So basically, I had to fund an escrow, and the teller at the bank couldn't do it, so I had to come back the next day. So like, I'm like, they wouldn't send the money before I'd funded the escrow if it was a sales tax thing. And we couldn't do it for a couple of days because they were unsure of the details. That was horrible. Like,
so the deal's done. It's all signed off.
Everything's like, we're all ready. Let's go. Like the end date is here. Like everyone's accounting is lined up to that end date. So this is the cutoff, blah, blah, blah. where I'm like there trying to transfer this money in the bank, like, and this sort of like 20-year-old teller's just like, I don't know how to do it. I've never done it. And, it was just like we were there for like an hour and a half. Came back the next day and got it done. But that was stupid.
So cash in the bank.
Cash in the bank.
You dial up your bank account. You take a look. What's your feel? How did you feel?
I mean, honestly, it's insane. But there's only so much numbers on a screen. Kind of like, maybe I need to be a tactile person and like need something in front of me. Like, sure.
Well, do a Floyd Mayweather and lay out.
Yeah. It was super exciting. Like, I think that and a combination of just sheer relief that the whole process had like not over, because you've got to work in transition and get them running the company successfully, but like the money was there and like the deal was done and it was safe. I had exited. So like I think it was just, as a business person, I think you always strive to go and do the next step and go to the next level. My head's always like, okay, so now what am I going to do with this money to secure my future? So I'm like already ahead. I kind of skipped the celebration. I think that it's kind of weird. I mean, like I had a bit of champagne on ice and we went out into the garden and sprayed that everywhere and had a moment of sort of just like, I did it. But that was about it. And I'm not extravagant, so I sort of made more investment purchases than
so you didn't just fuck off to Vegas and have a tear up for the weekend and come back with a Lamborghini.
No, right? I think I missed a trick there, but
I know you've done the right thing. So baby's at home, you've got it over the line, you've got some legacy money sitting there, taking a break. What was going through your mind next? Did you get that feeling where it's like, what? Fuck, what's next? I'm done. What will I get that feeling again? Did you go through that feeling?
So, like, I think this is kind of an interesting one because my position with already having an established Amazon company as a sort of fallback.
Yeah.
I didn't ever feel like done. I just felt like that was part of the plan and I'd executed it.
Yeah.
So it was sort of like now, like basically I'd been completely neglecting putting any input into that company. Like, baby and selling a company was like my limit. I'd like it was 100% hands off from me on that. So I sort of I came back into my other Amazon business a little more proactively. We'd actually ended up revenue was decreasing and we had to do some pretty significant changes to process and get some new people in place to kind of get that back on track. So for the audience
to understand is the bit we're going to talk to about next is the current business doing 2 million. You, as you were selling, or you had already set up a new brand and that was your side piece, right? And for a period.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, I'm sure as anyone that's selling on Amazon knows, a bunch of your friends go, hey, what do you do? I go, I sell on Amazon. They go, that sounds easy. I'll have a go at that.
Yeah.
So basically, my philosophy has been anyone that's ever asked me to do that, I'll sit on a conference call with them for a couple of hours, walk them through A to Z basics. We'll put equal money in equal partnership.
Yeah.
I'll give them the caveat that and contractually that they're doing 90% of the work and I'm providing a strategic contribution.
Yeah.
So then they go off and 90% of the people I've probably spoken to over 20 people in that context. I formed 3 partnerships. 2 of them no longer exist. And one of them was this other company. And that was started in late 2017, 2018.
Yeah. Do you still do that now? You know why I say that? Because you've just gone and said, I invest in these companies, everything. We get between 45 and 50,000 downloads a month. I just don't want your inbox blown up.
Oh, sure. No, I
just want to make that quite clear.
Fine.
Yeah.
No, like my plate's pretty full. Like I'm a full-time dad. I've got other business ventures that I'm kind of working at right now. I'm not really doing that anymore. But that was always my strategy as a sort of when I didn't have an exit, basically, was to like kind of try and get a piece of as many companies as I could. And it was one of those things I thought it was pretty low risk, like 2, 3, 4 hours of my time a week to kind of guide them and send them to the appropriate training videos, like 5 to 10 grand initial investment, put it in a pot, form a company, and see where they can take it, and if they work their ass off. And the first guy, like the guy that I did it with, our first product was garbage, didn't sell. We had to liquidate it. But like we made 4 or 5 sales. No, it was like a 1 a day kind of product. He saw it, and was like, I'm not letting go of this. And like, that thing in his head clicked, and he was like, right, we're doing it again. We can do this. And the second product really took off. We got to 20, 25 a day. And from there, we just built it,
Yeah. And so where are we now? So before we go back into the Amazon business, let's talk about some of your investments. So you've taken some of the money, your legacy money, and you've gone again. Obviously, you've already got this Amazon built. Quick question, and before we go back into it, you're going to plan to sell this one that's currently at 2 mil?
So my current plan is to not sell. I think Amazon businesses in the current state of play are a very undervalued asset. Like if you compare my company to a company that sells in the same industry that isn't solely on Amazon, like the multiples are completely different. I think that's going to continue to change as a lot of these venture capital firms and stuff start buying more and more Amazon companies.
I get contacted nearly weekly from these different companies wanting to reach out. What's Europe like? So I can just tell by the amount of contact I get from people. I get introductions. So can they speak to you about different markets? You're connected in the community, and it's just more and more and more all the time. So you can tell when there's a buzz around something. There's a bubble,
Yeah. So, everyone's seen Thrasio and Thrasio. I don't know how to pronounce it.
It's Thrasio. Yeah.
Thrasio. And like they want to ride on the back of that, and it's a good model, right? Like commingle 50 Amazon companies together that are worth 3x and sell them for 10 or 20 or whatever. Like it makes a lot of sense. So yeah. Anyway, I can only see the value of an Amazon asset increasing, and that's why I kind of want to hold on to this one a lot more. Like the first one was a bit different because it was kind of like I grinded, I continued to work as a laborer while so every single penny could go back into my company. I lived the rough life to do the long term thing
on the noodles.
That's kind of getting that done and then moving on was this one's the hold now. I've got that bit safe.
Let's talk about the wealth manager, stocks and shares and stuff. So let's start with the property. So it makes sense because you were a labourer, you've got your multi-skilled trade. So you've got a property portfolio, 1 or 2, or is there many you have now?
I bought 5. So most things I just try and go for it. So we bought, I bought 2 in Birmingham and 3 in Manchester. From a new build development. So there's sort of 2 investments, but 5 properties, if that makes sense. So it was off plan, new build. Some people that are in property are going like, Jesus, this guy's going to lose money. But I don't massively know what I'm doing, but I employed a company that seemed to have a really, really good reputation in that space. I've seen yield projections, like a bunch of stuff that was able to convince me that it was a logical thing to do.
So these new developments, were they rentals or are they bought to flip?
They're rentals.
A bit built to flip. So they're rentals. So it's long-term revenue.
They're rentals. It's long-term. They're in areas that are undergoing development. Like I did a fair amount of background research. I can't really see how properties in the areas that I bought are not going to increase in value on the long-term view. Manchester and Birmingham are both very, very strong cities out. Like Manchester's 2 outside of London, and Birmingham's like 4 or 5 in terms of growth. They're great places for employment. I mean, it just seems to make sense.
So in terms of yield, when you're looking to see a return on those, when did you get these, and then when are you expecting? I know it's long term.
Sure. I totally haven't worked all that out yet. Like the target, so the target yield is 5%.
Yeah.
And then the forecast growth in the value of the property is hopefully about 5% a year as well. So these are not they're not crazy HMO multiple occupancy deals where you're trying to get like 10-12% yield. It's just like a solid investment, which is what I wanted to do, right? Like you make a bunch of money, you want it to work for you, but you want it to be reasonably safe.
Yes.
So all of the places have got like guaranteed rental contracts. So the ones in Manchester are going to have 3-year contracts.
Right, rather than 6 months or so, you haven't got to worry about turnover. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And that's with an agency, so that they'll give a guaranteed rent for 3 years. Ones in Birmingham get guaranteed rent for 1 year. So it's just safe, And
there's no work once you've handed over the cash, developers go in, take over, they consult with you, right? Then you get a timeline of build and when they are obviously going to be ready for rental. Then what's involved for those who are listening who want to reinvest their money? What's the next steps? You just like monthly reports. You get a rundown on where you are. What happens now?
I'm not actually in either of them yet, so I can't give you an answer. We're completing. Well, we should be completed now on the 2 in Birmingham, and the other 3 in Manchester are scheduled for completion in spring 2021 because COVID delays.
I was going to say, was it down to COVID delay? Because as soon as you come offline, you know, a lot of I know that a lot of working class guys and building people went back to work a lot earlier because they had to, right? A lot of people that are self-employed, no way around it. So I imagine that was going to be a delay in terms of getting these builds turned around.
Yeah, it definitely was. The Birmingham one was a little bit closer to completion, so I think they were able to do social distancing stuff.
Right,
because they were working in individual, but like not doing like a big
crews in. Yeah, exactly. Send crews. You know, you're going to get electricians go in, then the plasters go in,
right?
So they work in their little bubbles. Yeah.
As opposed to like a big roof structure. You know, like it's But yeah, so renting. I just found an agency firm that were going to give guaranteed rents in that area. That was sort of a priority for me, just to make it safe and secure.
Pre-build, you locked down the rentals. You knew what was going to happen. You got a team in place, then you build.
Effectively, like I'm not saying that's like fixed in place, done. Like I haven't signed a contract.
No, you're doing your research though, and making sure that there's the opportunities there for
the company
like them to take it on.
They're definitely going to take it on. And that's still the case. They have good rental demand in the area.
Wealth manager.
Wealth manager. Yeah. We can
How did you go and get one? How would people find one? And what you
sure
invested in, you know?
So I went out and found a local guy, and he put it into some equities and some other stuff. To be bluntly honest, like I don't really know that much about it. I then had a conversation. My older brother, he's in banking and stuff. He's like a director. He's pretty well off. He got me in contact with his wealth manager, who's with St. James Place, and it's you give them the money, they put it into different pots that are tax efficient. Like I don't have much detail on that, but I put a pretty significant portion of my cash into it just after the dip in the market because we weren't sure. As no one can time the market, but I was trying to. And he got really annoyed because I was like, basically every day I was like, "Is now the do you think? What do you think?
Yeah.
Should we push it all in?" Because we were drip feeding, but I was sort of like, maybe now's the bottom. So it's not how you should do it.
Well, that comes from you're learning about, aren't you? You're nervous because you haven't got the experience behind it. Yeah. And so we covered those. So investments are underway here. So basically where you are is that it's a three-prong attack, right? So you invested in bricks and mortar. You've invested in the stock market. You've diversified some of your risk, left some money in the bank, and now you're holding on to this Amazon business. What I want to talk about now is you literally, it's a joke. We always joke on the show about a 4-hour work week, but literally you have got to that stage because you're building it. Tell them about is it the entrepreneurial EOS or something, the system that you got in place?
Yeah, so it's not totally in place yet, but so I'm in the $1 Million Sellers Group, and my friend Jamie Gardner. I hope I said that right. I always forget people's last names. I'm sorry, Jamie, if you're watching. It's not going to be that, is it? Fuck, I'm really embarrassed. I'm terrible with names. That's awful. So Jamie told me about the EOS thing, entrepreneurial operating system, and it's this American thing that is like a process for managing your business. So we're in the process of implementing that, and it's just simple things you can do to create accountability within your team. So you have to micromanage and deal less with individual performance, and it's more aligning everybody's goals within the company, choosing the right people, putting them in the right seats, and then having appropriate and efficient meetings with those team members and having them follow the correct processes. So it's all sort of designed to marry together and create a system that lets you step back a bit because you're confident and you trust the processes that you built and that your team are in the right places executing the processes correctly. And then you have like very clearly defined accountability goals. So for example, for like a product development manager, it'll be like they call them rocks. Your rock for this quarter is to source 20 products.
Yeah.
So then in your weekly meetings, you're sort of like, how are you on these rocks? And they're like, oh, I'm on target, I'm over target. And it's simple metrics that you can use to gauge performance in your company. And then that gives people accountability. And you've got a simple way that you can quickly check into, or without being like, why did you do this like this? What's the reasoning? But, it's trying to simplify the process, I guess.
So what have you, I know that you said everyone's got these high level metrics. What bit do you play them 4 hours a week that you spend in meetings and on that business? Could you give us a bit of a guide? Obviously that's not related to the private sell, the other business.
Sure. Yeah, no, I can talk freely about this company.
So if you can talk freely, how do you break that out yourself in terms of 4 hours as it divides?
So the reality is it's like 4 hours is idealistic, I guess. Like, sometimes I do a little bit more. Sometimes we don't have meetings that week and I do less. I would say it probably averages out between 4 and 6 hours. The cornerstone is our account manager. We made her incentives based around how many products she can source. So she gets a flat bonus when a product lands in Amazon, and she gets we predefine a launch target in terms of sales, and then she gets a bonus when she hits that metric for a sustained period of a week. So by giving her that kind of, like, basically she just started building processes to source products as efficiently as possible. Bugged us until we hired a product development manager, and now we're flying.
So, I mean, you mentioned like meeting for the products that week. Are you okay? You said about Zig and Zag. I won't go any further now unless you want to share that information.
Sure. No, I can talk about what we're doing.
You have a completely different process, didn't you, to a lot of people out there, and you're doing like you're going deep into the market, sheer volume of products, like flooding it, if you like.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really flood Amazon. We're still like this tiny little ripple.
I mean,
But
in comparison, there's most people, they'll launch X amount of products every quarter, or whatever.
Yep.
You're literally doing it weekly in multiples, aren't you? But you've got a system behind it. Yeah.
Now, basically, we identified that the core revenue generator of our company was launching more products.
Yeah.
So we sat down and brainstormed how we would launch products, and it wasn't building a brand. You know, a lot of what people are doing, so the way you need to identify and like break out in the market is to build your brand, build that audience.
Yeah.
And we were like, that just isn't what the Amazon consumer, I think, is doing in the space that we're in, which is products that sell between 3 to 20 units a day. Like, people don't care if that piece of string is from, you know, a string brand or a guy in China. Like, so we knew that if we didn't limit ourselves to a brand and a specific niche and audience, we could go super wide, like a lot of the Chinese sellers are doing. But we knew that we could also take better product photography, write better listing content, and do better advertising than a lot of what the Chinese sellers are doing.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not advertising, some of them are pretty good at that, but like, you know, like, we know how to use ManyChat, we know how to launch a product, we know how to do rebate key and all the good little bits that can really, and I don't know, we built a really solid process around launching. And we just execute that. We monitor our launches on a daily basis, and we adjust based on performance. So we just take a lot of data and we make small adjustments to price point, small adjustments to number of giveaways, number of add to cart clicks, all that kind of good stuff. I mean, I feel like I've derailed, but that's so easy in a conversation about Amazon.
No, you've covered a lot of stuff there. Probably might not have said add to cart too loud, but so
that wasn't me.
That wasn't you. Okay, so where are we going next? Because you've got to this stage. It's like, as you said, you're spending time home with your son. You take what you've learned from the last business. You're retaining this current business, but like you said, are you just waiting for the value of it to grow in the market and grow the revenue?
Yeah. So one thing you really realize the moment you sell your company is that you don't have a super clear source of income. And again, so the business that I'm still in, like, it's not because we built infrastructure and we have it, like, we don't have great profit. Like, we're growing and we have good revenue and good process now. But like, our net is like 6 or 7%.
Right.
It's not great.
Because you've been aggressive with
because we're hiring, we're like building processes, so all of that costs money and time. So
how do you know when to dial that out and focus on profit?
Right.
Do you have a plan, or do you feel when the right time is? Because that's not always defined, you know?
Yeah. And like, what I'm actually kind of thinking at the moment, and this is always subject to change, we kind of discuss, and this is part of EOS as well, is to keep your goal and vision on track. At the moment, my vision for the company is to have something that will give me a salary for the rest of my life. So I'm sort of building with that goal in mind. So we don't need to be aggressive and huge. What we need is wide diversity that's safe. And that's kind of what I'm aiming for. Obviously, with Amazon, I feel like you still always need to be growing. The second you stop launching stuff and become stagnant, like, things drop off, you need that new flow of fresh products coming in all the time.
So for context for the audience, how many products have you launched or will launch in the last 12 months up till Q4?
Sure. So we've been building a lot of the system that I've been talking about. So we've probably launched, and of it, COVID, the whole CNY, everything exploding at that time, we've probably done about 25 since the start of the year.
But what's in the pipe now?
in the pipe, we've got 36 or 38 that have been ordered and are in some stage of manufacture or shipping. We're doing between 8 to 12 a month at the moment.
Right.
So yeah, and I mean we're like ordering between 200 to 1,000 units of each new product. So these are not like, we're not going for the big wins, but we have a sort of 60, 70 success rate in launching products in this area.
And so that's a good thing to talk about now. Obviously, everyone has to have a level of failures, especially as you run as fast as you guys.
Yeah.
What's your strategy for, right, this is not going to work, let's dump it. How do you get rid of that product? How do you die that out?
Yeah, so we're actually, it's funny you say it, because we're actually building out a liquidations process for our team to follow. Right. There's a new thing, the Amazon outlet deals. We found that's actually pretty good for moving stuff when you get that offer. I think there's some other ways to get those as well. B-Stock is a liquidations auction site. So we move product on there when it won't move. Some stuff we literally just destroy. Our IPI score is pretty crappy at the moment. So we're getting rid of and liquidating some inventory just by destroying it in Amazon. And eating the cost. But again, like, we're sourcing in the 50 cents to $5 range most of the time. So none of these are big hits. And like, that's when we're going wide, like, we're also minimizing the risk on each potential launch. We're not spending 20, 30,000 on testing a new product. We're in a much smaller ballpark of price point.
Cool. All right. So let's round off here. What's the plan for the next couple of years? Where do you want to be?
I mean, I feel like it's weird. Like, we've spent so much time like building the plan and the roadmap. It's kind of just sitting back a little bit and letting that flow through. I think we're probably going to need a new office because we're pulling on another couple of team members, and it's getting a bit cozy where we're at. So that's something that's going to happen business-wise. And I want to see, like, my room. I'm in my sort of office at the moment, but we took out a wardrobe in here because it used to be a bedroom when we moved in here, and I haven't painted it yet. So I got this. It was obviously a kid's room. So there's loads of stuff like that in this house that is just not done. So renovating and decorating the house and doing all that kind of stuff is another thing on the agenda. Yeah.
Cool. So we'll wrap here. Thank you for doing the first session, because I think people are surprised because they want to know, like, everyone's, a lot of people via the biggest part is like, can we get an exit? Not everyone can get an exit, or they stumble along the way, or they do it on the second or third time. But it's just quite interesting. Like, you're normal. You're still down to earth. Do you see what I mean? It's like, I think you got to be aware. Some people have magical thinking. It's like, right, if I get there, they think of being on the beach, and so their happiness starts at exit. But I think it's really important to know is like, and the people that I have spoken to, and I've got 6 or 7 guests doing this, they're all very grounded. Do you see what I mean? And I don't think exits really change people's lives. They change their bank account. So it can fix any money problems that you have, but it doesn't fix the other stuff,
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree. I was just going to close, like, the exit has not dramatically changed how I exist or what I do. I just have some money now. Like, but hopefully that's a good thing about me. Right?
No, I mean, like, you're completely humble, and so, but like you said, is that everyone wants that safety net, that egg or whatever in the bank. It just takes the edge off, and so, like, the people we'll speak to over time, over the next few weeks as part of this series, I think the common theme is, when you go again, it is less stressful. It's hard to deal with going on in Amazon if you get suspended. When you're all in, the stress levels go up. But when you know that you're putting your foot in and there's enough money to build another business for an exit and still have investments and still have your mortgage paid off and everything, it changes the game, because you can improve things from your last business that you won't do again. You build better teams, you do better product sourcing, and it just seems like life gets better. It's still business, but you still need to focus. But it takes that little edge of like the safety net as an entrepreneur is finally there. You've got some carpet under your feet that's not getting pulled.
That's actually a pretty good reminder, actually. Sometimes, like one thing I found a massive adjustment is like, because of the partnership and the structure, I can't really take a salary from my company. So I had no income coming in, and like it's taken me a long time to kind of like adjust to that and being okay for a little bit. And like having stuff in place that I'm building. But like as an entrepreneur who's used to being able to take funds from their business account on a regular basis, it just shocks you a bit that doesn't exist anymore. But it does kind of spur you on to
create those. But this is these little wealth cycles that you create. So while you're doing that, while you're burning through some of that cash as living expenses, you're building the next thing, like your properties, like the having a wealth manager, and that still takes time as well, because you still you take wealth and carry on building it where you can. It doesn't just sit in the bank and gather interest, or that I wouldn't say that's the I'm not a financial advisor, but that's not necessarily the advisable way of doing it, right?
For sure.
Still, like you're adding SKUs on Amazon, you always want to extend on your wealth to keep obviously doubling down to make sure that you have fully got security for the remainder of your life. Because I think when people retire, that 30 years, they can still burn through a lot of money and then run out. And so it depends on your lifestyle. And I think you live quite a simplistic lifestyle. You're not flash or anything. You don't have a lot of materialistic things. Then it's different, But I think if people are trying to set to attain a lifestyle, you need to keep funding it by keep having these businesses that are all bringing you in revenue.
I think I'm not big into reading books, Rich Dad, Poor Kid, or whatever it's called.
Well, that was actually the book that changed my life, because I never had financial education. But go on. So
it's been on my shelf for ages. I mean to read it.
Can I let you into a little secret? You don't fucking need it. Basically, you've got a company to 8 million. You flip that. You're on a new company with 2 million. I'm sure it's a book you can leave on the shelf.
I feel like it's one of those things. I think just by process of going through what I've done in my business, I've kind of done what I think the book will say, which is like go up income. So, you sort of work, then you have a business that generates money, then you have assets that bring in trickles of money. And then hopefully you don't have to continue to work.
Cool. I don't know if you want to give details out, but if someone wanted to reach out, a bit of advice, can they reach you anywhere?
Sure. Like email's probably the best way, because I've got a kid. It's super hard for me to take phone calls, and I can reply in the evenings. What should I just give my email here, or
if you're happy with that, or they can get you on Facebook?
That's fine. Hit me up on Facebook, or email is harwood.e.joseph. So my name should be on the screen, and then it's harwood.e.joseph@gmail.com.
Excellent. Thanks for joining us today, guys. Don't forget to vote now, sellerpoll.com, brought to you by Ferraccio. Also, can I get some beta testers on the new tool that we launched yesterday? Go to databrill.com, which is our new best worst keyword tool that will help you optimize your search term reports. It is free. There's no sign-ups or anything required, and it should help you with optimizing for your search terms. Again, I'll be back here 4 p.m. BST tomorrow. We've got another in-depth. Joining me tomorrow will be Shane Oglow. Have a good day, and I'll see you then. Take care.
Bye.